When I see a candidate, my avatar client, I can't just trap them. I have to go out and actually take interest in them versus always trying to be interesting and really connect with people on a deep level. And if you do that, not only are you going to succeed, but you're going to pull away from the pack.
Are you looking to improve your sales skills without compromising your values? Welcome to Sales Made Easy, a podcast for business and personal growth. Now, here's your host, Harry.
Did we say the dragon is making an appearance? Yes, we did. We have the dragon, Dr. JC Doornick, making an appearance on the Sales Made Easy podcast. And for those of you who do not know the dragon, he is a podcaster in the top 1% of all podcasts. He is an entrepreneur that is running a 7-figure business in the health transformation field and coaching. He is a humanitarian. So you gotta look this guy up. He's making a huge impact in the world. And last but not least, he is a self-proclaimed DJ, and more to come on that. And the crowd is going wild. Dr. JC Doornick, welcome to the Sales Made Easy podcast. What's the good word, sir?
The good word is Harry Spaight. You know, it's just, I spotted you quite a long time ago, and I have nothing but respect for you and your show. So for me, it's an honor to be here.
Oh, man. All right. So flattery will get you everywhere. I'll let you just take the stage from here.
Should we just close it out right there? That's good enough.
I say the mic drop as you will. So talk to me. What is going on in your world? You've got so many different things with podcasting, running a business in the healthcare and coaching field, disc jockeying, humanitarian. Where is it you would like to start as to what's on top of your mind today?
Well, I'd love to, jump into what's most relevant, to support this show. But, I guess what you should know about me is, I come from a camp of, just recognizing that life is unpredictable, and I highly, highly value time. And I've been through quite a lot of interesting things in my life that have led me to really, truly value the things that matter most. So when you see, me in action, yeah, I do things for money, and everything I do for money has to be connected to change. I like to create change. That's why I've always been involved in philanthropy and humanitarian efforts and stuff. But at the same time, I really want to try everything. I like to travel and spend most of my time with my family and the things that matter most. So when it comes to business and, topics that we're going to discuss, I like to leverage my time for money. I don't like to trade time for money. So I've had to learn how to generate income in small packets of time and create passive income so that I could live my life around what matters most.
Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful. And this is a topic is rarely discussed, is balancing family and business. And I love what we were talking about earlier, is that you really look at the simplicity of life. Live simply is on the little sign behind you. So why don't we start there? Because I think a lot of people view growing their business as a grind. Everything is a grind until they hit the goal. So to me, that's like a miserable exchange, being miserable and grinding for years to hit a goal. And then you have a heart attack by the time you hit your goal, just facetiously saying that. But I think there's a better way. It seems like you might have discovered it.
Yeah. I speak a lot on my podcast about consciousness. And, so I'm a big fan whenever I meet somebody and they're just, forgive my French, but talking shit, in the sense that they just, are saying things that just either simply aren't true or just are, just signs of this unconscious sleepwalking nation that's just following the herd. I see that everywhere I go. I like to think that I'm the person that takes a left when everybody takes a right. But, to your point, you can't really appreciate the light unless you've spent time in the dark. And the only reason I know what I know is because I've made more mistakes than anybody in the room, And I'm blessed to have made those mistakes. I come from, you know, a structure of making money where I was a doctor and it was my dream. I always wanted to be a doctor, and I did very well at it. If you look at it from the outside in, and I was always praised and getting chest bumps on stage for having a very, very healthy, lucrative chiropractic practice. But what you couldn't see, to your point, is that I was in the throes of a divorce and I was working 80, 90 hours a week, telling my kids in the morning, you're the most important thing to me in the world, and then leaving and coming back and they were already asleep. And my wife would be standing there with her arms crossed saying, like, is this it? And that's just because, forgive me for I knew not what I did. That's the way I was brought up. My dad was never home. He always worked, and I just kind of followed suit. And what's interesting about that grind model that you were talking about, because there is something to say about the grind. I mean, I still grind, but I do it in small pockets of time. I read a fantastic book that most people don't know about called The Power of Full Engagement, which simply talks about, if you're Michael Johnson and you're running the 100, you can't do that for a mile. You have to take a break every now and then. So in my old business structure, the more successful I got, careful what you ask for, you just might get it. We were joking about that before. The less free time I had. I was talking to somebody that wanted to work with me today, and they were looking at my model of doing work. And, it sounds silly, but I teach people how to make money in less time, high leverage activities. And they were like, okay, it sounds good. But I said, well, let's take a look at your model right now. This was somebody that, basically spends an hour with each client. I don't care how much money you're making per client, because time is not just about money. And I said to them, I go, what would happen if you got 50 new clients today? I said, you'd be screwed. I said, you'd have a lot of money, but you'd be screwed. You'd have to get on the phone with everybody you care about and say, I can't make it. So yeah, it's people know that. And I hope that the listeners hear that and maybe can self-reflect and don't think that you're bad for spending too much time working, because that's probably the way you're wired. But there's better ways of doing it. And I think it starts with recognizing, everybody's got to have their come to Jesus moment. Sometimes it's harder than others, but you just got to recognize that the average American probably spends 85% of their entire life working. And last time I had a conversation with God, he said, that wasn't my idea. So that's a man-made thing. And it's been wired in by our mother, father, teacher, preacher, and society and evolution and natural selection. So we're all just zombies walking around doing what we think is right. But if you can take a step into the space in between, the things that you're looking at and your way of reacting to it, which is something I teach, and just look at things logically and rationally, you'll see that's not what you want. That's not what you want.
Yeah, I so love it. I was thinking, having been in the grind for many years, working in Washington, D.C., making a 90 to 120-minute commute each way. Yeah. Thinking that was the American dream. I was living the American dream.
For many working towards it, it is. Yeah. But for somebody in it, they could say, it's not as cool as you thought.
Right. And coming home with my wife's arms folded, looking at me with 3 little kids. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I was there, and thankfully there was enough patience and worked through things. But yeah, it was a matter of learning through those challenges and saying, is this the life I really want?
That's right.
Right. And then it becomes quality of life now starts to balance it out, because I look at kids, and a lot of entrepreneurs have kids and probably think the same way I used to think, is that my earnings were more important than spending the time with the kids so that they could have the life that I didn't have. But in the end, your kid is watching you go out to, maybe not even seeing you, right? Not seeing you go out the door in the morning, not seeing you come home, not there at the baseball games or the dance. And then it's like every other parent's there. So yeah, those are some tough things to justify after you do that for a while and say, is this really the answer? So
Absolutely. Kids just want to be with you, you know. That's our idea, all that stuff. And this is very much what I talk about. I have a book coming out in January called Makes Sense. And it's a story, of my life, but and all these insights and lessons that I learned. And you know, it's not our fault. We're all just wired to just follow the programming that we've received our whole life, And I don't want to get too far into that because we don't have enough time, but just one wake up call right now would just be to say, rather than grinding towards a financial goal or an accolade goal or something like that, just ask yourself what matters most to you, right? If you had a list of 10 things that were important to you and you had to get rid of 9 of them, what would you end up with? And then ask yourself, are you making that a priority now, or are you thinking, to your point, that that priority will come into play later? Because you'll notice that the grind leaves that behind. I just made that up right now.
Yeah. So yeah, this is great. So one of the things that we were there, I think it'd be super helpful for any listener that's kind of caught in the throes of the 16-hour days, sacrificing because they've been told
Yeah.
by society, this is what you do to start a business. You make all kinds of sacrifice, but you don't want to sacrifice your family. You don't want to sacrifice your marriage. You don't want to sacrifice your health. Let me just put those things out there, and your spirituality as well. So we were chatting a little bit about how to make sales easier for people. And it was really through one of the thoughts was the connection, the human connection. And you were talking a little bit about, or maybe let me ask you this, is there more connection going on today, or is there less? And what's your opinion of what needs to happen when it comes to the sales arena?
It's interesting to look at that. And this is a big point. Sometimes we'll spend like 5-10 years honing in on our craft and determining. Sometimes we even receive mentorship and coaching from somebody like you, and we'll create like a high leverage day that we're doing to leverage our goals, to increase the odds of us achieving our goals. But every now and then times shift. So what I was explaining to you before is there's an interesting, phenomenon going on right now that I noticed, because I've played a big role of my success has taken place online. But interestingly enough, the beginning of my run at success took place before that was even happening, right? I mean, I come from, this world of shaking hands and doing live speaking engagements and meeting people all day in person and failing and joining BNI and doing that whole thing and becoming the president of BNI and just that grind, but just touching and shaking hands and hugging and just being with people. But then all of a sudden social media came into play, and I guess I was lucky enough to not get like overindulged into it. I always looked at social media as a whole as another version of a website, meaning I can brand myself on social media. And if anybody meets me and goes and looks me up on social media, I can prove my worth, my consistency, my product, what I solve and all that stuff. But then when COVID came along, that was an interesting time. Like I was riding real smooth because I had it all set up. I had my branding, I had an outreach program, and I could end my day at 2 and go play with my kids. And then when COVID came, what's interesting is that got even more relevant all of a sudden, because when everybody came home, it wasn't even part of the equation to go out and connect with people. Everybody was doing this. Everybody was on Zoom and all that stuff. So my business tripled during COVID, right? And it was just awesome. I was like, this is great. I don't have to ever get out of this seat. I don't have to go to BNI anymore. It's on Zoom now. And so because the nature of my business was virtual and it was social media related, that was easy peasy. And what's interesting is COVID was not the problem. I see that the big shift that happened because of COVID, everybody comfortably just started working from home. And I know it sucked for a lot of people, but we kind of figured it out. And everybody was like, hey, this is kind of cool. But then after COVID left, that's when everything got really confusing. And what I was sharing with you before is we all got so comfortable. Think about COVID was the explosion of NFTs and crypto and all that stuff happened during COVID. Like nobody's even aware of that. So we just all got so comfortable, and we're even comfortable with the fact that like you can just like whisper to your children at bed about like a product and it starts showing up on your feed. Like, so social media has now become something that people trust less and less and less. So, and also people are recognizing it's very distracting. So social media is getting a little bit of a different rub right now. And I just feel, and I'm moving with the times right now, you know, I think it's time to go back to take social media and put it where it is. It's great for branding. It's a great way of connecting with people, but we have to start connecting with people again. And I don't mean running down the street and hugging with people. I just mean that branding yourself is not enough anymore. You got to reach out. I mean, look at us. Look at us.
Right.
You and I met through social media, but the only reason this is happening today is because we took it to another place and we actually connected and we learned about each other. That's where the business is right now, you know? So, you know, I have all of my storefront up and running, and if anybody's watching me, I know they're watching me, right? But when I see a candidate, my avatar client, I can't just trap them. I have to go out and actually take interest in them versus always trying to be interesting and really connect with people on a deep level. And if you do that, not only are you going to succeed, but you're going to pull away from the pack, because it's taking, humanity is totally unconsciously moving with social media right now. And now we've got virtual reality and AI, and all these people are jumping on those bandwagons, and they're cool. I love those bandwagons. But meanwhile, I'm out actually talking to people and building trust and doing tons of business where other people are not.
Right. Yeah. I mean, for higher ticket items, especially, sales is all about having the conversations and building the trust, right?
Yeah.
Where people feel that this guy or gal is worthy of my investment. They're
That's
the
right.
one that's going to solve my problem.
You're the brand, not your
Yeah.
product. Your
Yeah.
product has to solve a problem, but people don't buy your product, they buy you. And, you know, it's all based on trust. You know, if you're not building trust with people through many, many ways, you're not doing business. I don't care how
Yeah.
good your product is.
Yeah. And it's just people are trying to take shortcuts, which, like you mentioned, you go on social media. If I'm sure I'll be looking at something on branding later, right? There'll be pop-ups about branding and
Right.
a simpler life, because this conversation is being recorded by social media.
Oh yeah. We're gonna be sold something tomorrow because of this conversation.
Right. So that's just the way it works. So then you have a great conversation, you build some trust, people have some confidence in you. They go and start scrolling in social media, and guess what? They got 17 different other
Yeah.
options for the same thing. And they're firing off, hey, you want to make $1 million, 7-figure coaching, whatever it is, gets to be very enticing. So some people are constantly chasing the silver bullet. Something out there is easier. But in the end, you're the one that's had the conversation with people. And
That's
this
right.
is really what we encourage, is that have the conversations, get to know people, because you're getting to know them and recognizing what their life will be like when their problem is solved is way different than the person that's just cutting to the chase, which I often hear. Let me just cut to the chase. I do this. Are you interested? And yeah, that's when sales is a numbers game, but I believe it's a people's game. And it sounds like you do as well.
Yeah. And, you know, I'll use you as an example because you're a master at this. You know, if you go look at, you know, Harry's social media, he's got great stuff out there, but like all the time, he's not just giving content, it's him. And you're like, if you follow Harry in his social media, you feel like you know him. So who are you going to sign up with if you need, you know, his services? Are you going to sign up for him or somebody that's got like a click funnel and a trip line? I mean, if you want to just go out there and make money and not give a crap about people, then create a service that is like that's remotely good and so cheap that people will forget about the fact that they pay you every month. There's an easy way to make money, but you won't sleep at night.
Right.
if you really, really want to provide service. And then another piece of this, and I know you know this, is that, you know, you really have to understand to be patient. I've never been a fan of teaching people or learning how to close people.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with having some sort of an action step and moving someone to a sale when the time is right. But what I teach my coaches to do is I say, let's not close people. People don't want to be closed right now. Everybody's trying to close them. Let's go out and open people. And what I mean by open people, it's the difference between going out to get somebody and going out to get somebody. And
Mm.
when you go when you have conversations with people, and you have to be patient, because people are not going to do business until the morning they wake up and they decide they're ready. People ask me sometimes in my health transformation business, they go, in a networking environment, they go, what are you looking for, JC? How can I refer to you? Right. So I could say, oh, I'm looking for people that want to lose weight and get healthy and all that stuff. But what I do is I say, well, I'm looking for people that are looking to get healthy, right, and all that stuff, and ready. So I always throw that in, because if you're not ready, I'm not going to try to get you ready. We don't teach people how to get people ready. They're ready when they're ready. So another thing about leveraging your time and increasing your sales, it's not a numbers game, but you got to have a lot of hooks in the water, per se, with bait that fish are not chomping at, but looking at, and
Mm.
they'll go after it when they're ready. So when I have a good month, like right now, I told you when we came in, like I had a day that was too busy.
Mm.
I didn't expect to be this busy, but the nature of how I build business is I do it in power hour increments. I'll do like 1 to 3 hours and then get out and spend time with my family. But I put so many hooks in the line, and those hooks are not expecting anything. I'm detached from outcomes. I'm just putting more interest in others than looking for what I get. And I have so many hooks that every now and then I have a great day, right, where everybody bites at the same day. So that's how my business incrementally keeps growing, is I just have so many things out there. So I spend more time giving than taking. I put more deposits in my account than ask for withdrawals, but it always ends up working in my way.
Yeah, it's beautiful. When you look at the numbers like that, it's the activity and just making yourself available in different avenues. I just don't like treating people as numbers, but you have to have numbers in sales, right?
Right.
You have to have more than one person that you're talking to, and build, right, you build like a little community of people that are somewhat interested, some are really interested, and you just keep nurturing them and they will fall and hire you when the time is right. But yeah, there's very little. You ask for the order politely. If they say no, I'm not ready, it's okay. You don't have to say, well, what could be more important than this? Like you're the only thing there in their life, right?
Well, the one of the I've read every book in the world. I mean, I read a book every week. So shout out to my friend Jim Quick, who he's my neighbor, taught me how to
Mm.
speed read. Learn how to speed read, because whatever it is that we consume with regularity ends up being what we assume with regularity. So I have a totally different vantage point on the world, because I control what I consume. So I read
Mm.
all the time, and I've read all the
Mhm.
sales books and everything. And you know, I used to be called, back in the days, the king of the takeaway. I mean, the takeaway is like, if you know how to do a takeaway, it's the best. I mean, you could even do that in the dating scene,
Right, right.
like, say, oh, no, I don't want to screw this up. Let's have a date tomorrow. So in the business world, the consumer is expecting for you to move to the close. That's another thing. This works into being patient, because if you're patient, sometimes if you go through a lull in sales, if something just tickles and you see your lure, bobbing in the water, you might get a little excited and jump on somebody. But there's so much power in building further trust. Like when somebody comes to me and they said, hey, I'm all in. I want to work with you. I want to do this and that. I have a tendency, because remember, I got to work with them as well. That's important to understand
Mm.
too. Like
Right.
if I do serve you and solve your problem, I'm going to spend time doing that. So I have to be careful that, I don't want people starting and stopping. So when someone says, I'm ready, I'm all in, I say, great. I go, but before we start, let me just explain what will be expected of you. And that's an interesting thing to do. And that's not a tactic, by the way. That's protecting my time and also securing a more committed client. I'm fine with them taking some time and waiting. But when somebody makes a decision and they make what's called a quality decision, which means makes a decision that's connected to the work that needs to be done and the time and the investment, and then they make a decision, you have a lifetime client. So I would rather have 10 lifetime clients than 100 flash in the pans. Right. So that's another thing, I've been patient, and that's why I have people that don't jump ship at the first time a sign of trouble,
Yeah. There's so much commonality there. Yeah. I just put a post out on LinkedIn about the rabbit and the tortoise, or I was actually a beaver, because I was just using the eager beaver. As soon as there's a sign that someone's interested, people who are with less experience go for the throat. They go for the kill. Yeah. And there is so much from the time someone expresses deep interest to really build on that, to build the trust. Like, there is no way they're going anywhere after you go another few steps further at that point.
It. And you need to give people the opportunity to drop the magic smoke and disappear, right? You need to give people, a lot of times, especially if you're a good salesperson, if you coerce someone into something and they even spend their money, they did that unwillingly and they're already thinking, I got to get out of here. Yeah. So that's not business. Unless your business is all about like just flash in the pan, not actually helping people. Right. My business is structured on developing long-term relationships and people vested and actually giving them value, because that's where I get my referrals. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with doing that. It works in social media, by the way, as well. There's a great book, an ebook. I think it's free. You can just look it up, called 1,000 True Followers. Yeah. We talk about this all the time. Like, I have this big podcast, I think we have like 84,000, downloads or something like that. I could care less, because I don't know 83,000 of those people. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't tell you any of their names, right? But 1,000 of them I know, right? And I've built my whole business off of that. So that's another thing is, you could become a multi-millionaire and leverage yourself in so many ways with 100 people, right? So you don't have to get caught up in this status of being cool. So it is not a numbers game in that sense, but you do have to meet enough people to leverage the chance of meeting the people you're looking for.
Right. Yeah, exactly. This has been great. I had a feeling this conversation was going to fly by. Yeah. So where can people find more of your incredible insight, Dr. JC?
You can always, as I always, that's another one of my takeaways is I say, before we work together, the first thing I would do is Google me, just to make sure that I'm not some axe murderer or something like that. So you're always welcome. Just Google me. You might find something else I do, but you can always just go to www.riseupwithdragon.com. Rise Up with Dragon is my podcast, and my Instagram is at Dr. JC Doornick. We have an awesome free community. Like, we have a Telegram community that just has just constant stuff that helps people wire their heads on right for their day. I give a lot of stuff away for free. And if anybody wants to engage with me, do it there. Meet the people that I work with, and just stay tuned and close to Harry, because I'm following him around for the rest of my life.
Oh, you're too kind. This has been great. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a blast.
My pleasure, man. It's been fun for me too.
Thank you for listening to Sales Made Easy. If you found value in our conversations, please subscribe and leave a review. Our goal is to provide practical strategies for growing your business while staying true to your values. Remember, success in sales is about serving your clients. Serve first, and the selling will follow. We'll be back soon with more insights and inspiration. Until then, keep serving and providing value to others. Good things will happen.